Okay, so this is the third part of parabolas. We're going to look at writing equations based on just information. Typically, I draw things out because it helps me, but you do not have to, so you'll see me drawing out the graphs so that it'll help me write the equation. All right, so it says use the information provided to write the vertex form of the equation of each parabola. So I'm given some information, different information for different ones, and so I usually put that on a graph somehow. Okay, I'm going to use a different color so it doesn't blend in with what we already have. Okay, so my vertex is at 0, 0, and my focus point is at 0 and negative 1/30 seconds. So 0 and negative 1/30 seconds is going to be on the y-axis below the vertex. So remember, your focus point is inside the parabola. So I know my parabola's got to open downward. So automatically I know it's a y equals and it's negative. I need the a term. So remember, a is 1 over 4 times the distance, the c, distance between the vertex and this focus point. This focus point is at negative 1/30 seconds. That's how far away from 0 it is. Okay? So if I simplify this, I get 1 over, and then 4 over 32 is an 1/8. So if I keep changing flip, my a term is an 8. Okay? So I'm just doing the math here. In my denominator, I have 4 times 1 over 32. 4 times 1 over 32 is 1 over 8. And so 1 divided by 1 over 8 would be 8. Excuse me. So that's my a term. My vertex is at 0, 0. So I did not have to add or subtract anything for my parabola. I just know that it's x squared. So this is my equation. And again, you don't have to draw the picture. It just helps me visualize what I'm doing. All right, so this again, the vertex is at 0, 0. The directrix is at y equals a half. So if this is 1, then my directrix is, right there between the 1 and 0. All right, remember my parabola opens so that the directrix is on the outside. So again, this parabola is open down. So I know it's a y and a negative. My a term is the 1 over 4 times the distance. So now the distance between the directrix and the vertex is a half. Okay? So 4 times a half is 2. So my a term is a 1/2. Now, because my vertex again is at 0, 0, I did not have to add or subtract anything from my equation. So this is my equation. Okay? So I'm hoping that is understandable. All right, now let's get to where our information doesn't have a vertex or it has something different. Okay? So let's look at this one. I'm just going to draw it out here. My vertex is at 1, 3. So here's 1, 3. All right? And it has to pass through the point negative 1, 5. So it's got to pass through that. So it probably has one on the other side as well. So it looks like my parabola is going to open this way. It says it opens left, and that would be correct. All right, so since it's opening left, I know it's x equals. So let's just put everything in here. A, we don't know yet. And then y minus the k value, so that's of the vertex, so that's a 3. And then plus the h value, which is a 1. Okay. So in order to find a, I'm going to have to use some information that I already know. I know that it passes through this point because I was given that information. So I'm going to use this point as my x and my y. This was my h and my k. So now let's just plug it in. We have 5 equals a. Yep, 5 doesn't go there. What goes there? X. All right, so our x was negative 1 equals a times 5 minus 3 to the square plus 1. So I have plugged in my x and my y that I was given. I also have my vertex plugged in that I was given. I'm needing to find the a. So I have to use what I know in order to find that term. Okay, because that's part of my equation. So let's just simplify. 5 minus 3 is 2. 2 squared is 4 plus 1. Well, this would be 4 in front of the a and then our plus 1. Okay? So we're going to move the 1 over, make it negative 2, and then we're going to divide by 4. So our a term is a negative 1/2. So if I'm going to write this equation, I'm going to replace this a with a negative 1/2. It opens to the left, so I know it's negative. And now I found out my a term was a half. Okay? That one's a little trickier. You have to do a little bit something different to find what you need. Alright, so for this one, we have a focus point in a directrix. Alright? The focus point is at negative 2, 3. And the directrix is at x is 2. So if x is 2, it's a vertical line like this. Alright, so here's the deal. If the focus point is in the parabola, then my vertex is between these two things, the focus point and the directrix. And it opens so that the focus point's inside. Okay? So there's my vertex. It's at 0, 3. Vertex is at 0, 3. It opens on the x-axis, so it starts out with x equals. And it is going to the left, so that's a negative direction. Let's find our a. The distance between the vertex and the focus point is 2 units. So 1 over 4 times 2, which is 1/8. Then our y, we're going to put our y of the vertex, which is 3. And then we didn't go anywhere on the x, so we don't have a plus anything. So this would be the equation for this situation. Okay? Now, I try to give you a couple of different scenarios so you'd see different aspects. Vertex and the focus point, vertex and the directrix, the focus point and the directrix, and then I gave you a vertex and another point on the graph. Okay? So, hopefully these scenarios will be enough to help you with the work for today. Then the last thing you have to be able to do is to identify the focus point, directrix, and the vertex. And so I gave you several different equations here. So I want to walk through that. So focus point, directrix, I'll just abbreviate, and then vertex. Okay? Focus point, directrix, and vertex. Now the vertex is the easiest part because that's the adding and subtracting part. So on this one we did not add or subtract anything. So our vertex is at 0. So again, if you do not need to graph, do not graph. I just am visual, so I have to do that. So I know my vertex is here and my parabola is going down. Okay, because it's a negative and it's a y equals. Now, my a term is 1 over 16. I need to know how far is my focus and directrix apart from it. So I need c. So we're going to cross multiply and then we're going to divide. So my distance is is 4. So on the inside 4 is my focus point. On the outside 4 is my directrix. Okay, remember focus point's on the inside of the parabola, directrix is on the outside, and they are equal distance from the vertex. So I just needed to know what was my distance, and I used the a term to find that. Okay, you might want to pause it and then try the next one and then check it. Okay? So my vertex, again, I did not add or subtract anything, so it's at 0. Alright, now this one starts at x equals, so it opens on the x and it's negative, so it's got to open this way. Okay? I need to know how far is the focus and directrix apart from the vertex. My A value is 2. And again, we're going to cross multiply and solve for C. So my distance is an 1/8. Okay, now be careful. The distance is an 1/8. But since we didn't move away from 0, 0, it's an 1/8 on the inside and an 1/8 on the outside. Okay, so my focus point, I went in an 1/8, so that's -8, 1/8. I didn't go up or down. That's my focus point. Okay, and then the directrix is on the outside, crossing the x-axis at 1/8. Okay, so be careful. The distance between the vertex and the directrix and focus point is the same. So if I know A, I can figure out what is the distance between them. Okay? Alright, so let's go down to these two. We're still going to name the same stuff. Focus point, directrix, and vertex. Okay, hopefully I can get these in real quick. Alright, so I'm going to move over this 2. So that 2 is going to go back here. Okay, we have a y equals, here's our vertex at -3, -2. Remember, we can get that from our h and our k. Our a value is a 1/2. It is opening downward because it's a negative. Okay, a parabola is going that way. If our a is a 1/2, we need to know c. So cross multiply and divide. And we have a distance of a 1/2. All right, now on the inside a 1/2 from -2 is our focus point. So we're at -3 on x, but we went -2 and a 1/2 to get to the focus point. Then our directrix is a 1/2 above that vertex. So it's crossing the y-axis, and it's a 1/2 away from -2, so -1 and a 1/2. Okay, so that one's a little different. You might want to look at that again. All right, so for this last one, I'm going to need to complete the square so that I can find all the information that I need. All right, and hopefully my time is not going to run out before I can get that done. 1/2 of 4 is 2 squared is 4, so I'm going to add that to both sides. And we're going to write it as a binomial squared. Move over this 9 and then divide everything by by 2. Okay, negative is not in there. All right, so we have 1/2 as our a. 1 minus y minus 2 squared minus 9/2. All right, so our parabola opens on the x and it's positive. Our vertex is -9/2, and that's 4.5, so -4.5. -4.5 and 2. -4.5, 2. And it is opening on the x and it's positive, so it's got to open this way. Okay? Our focus point is inside, and if I take my a term and I cross multiply and divide, I get a 1/2 as my distance. So 1/2 on the inside is the focus point, so that would be at -4, and then 2, at 2. And my directrix is a 1/2 on the outside. So it's at x equals, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, -5. Okay? Now, I know my time is running out, but these are different scenarios for writing equations, whether you have a graph or you have certain information. Go back through the video. If there is any additional questions, just ask me on Wednesday. Okay?